All right, it is 7 o'clock, and I would like to call this regular meeting of Kimberley City Council held here on the Tanaha Homelands for Monday, February the 27th. Do we have any late items, Scott?
We have no late items this evening.
Hearing none, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor Royer moves, Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We have no delegations this evening, so we move right into Section E, which is bylaws, permits, and policies. And first up is the zoning amendment bylaw for 523 304th Street. And the motion on the floor is that council instruct the corporate officer to issue notice notice of intent to not hold a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw 2740. We'll talk more about that when we kind of get into it here. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Royer seconds. All right, Troy, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just as a brief overview here with proposed zoning amendment bylaw 2740, this applies to the subject property at 523 304th Street. The application here involves proposed rezoning of the site from the current automobile commercial C3 zone to the commercial C1 zone. And the proposed rezoning is intended to support construction of a mixed-use commercial residential development with potentially multiple commercial units and multiple residential units. This subject property was formerly had some previous commercial uses with some petrochemicals, gas station use, and some repairs. It's long since been decommissioned and has sat vacant for a number of years, as we know. The owner and applicant here has obtained a certificate of compliance from the Ministry of Environment, showing that the site remediation has been taken care of appropriately and allows for rezoning and eventual redevelopment of the site. I should also clarify that there's two parcels here side by side at the corner of that corner of 304th Street, and this proposed rezoning just then allows both properties to be under the same C1 zoning. So as I mentioned, there's potential for the development of 4 multi-unit residential buildings with 2 to 5 residential units in each. There's the way the proponent has designed those buildings allows for some flexibility of rearranging units, and up to 2 commercial units per building. So it's our hope that we'll see a combination of a diversity of units there on the site when and if the site's ever developed. And preliminary plans for those are attached there to the staff report. That's, I think, probably good for the overview of what's proposed. I just wanted to touch on the proposed recommendation there that staff's recommending that we proceed without a public hearing on this. This is a procedure that local governments are able to use, that's enabled in the legislation, that a zoning amendment can proceed without a public hearing when the proposed zoning is clearly consistent and in alignment with the official community plan. Staff points out in our report there that that is indeed the case here, and this notice, if council chooses to go down that path, then notice of proceeding without the public hearing would take place before any actual readings of the bylaw, so prior to first reading.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Troy. So, neighbors and those feel like they are affected by this will have an opportunity for written input, despite the fact that we're not having an official public hearing. So is this part of the kind of the provincial government's new kind of rules and regs around speeding up the process?
Yeah, that's correct. There has been provisions in the legislation for quite some time around proceeding without a public hearing, but more recent amendments have kind of clarified that process and simplified that process for local governments to choose to go that route where there's compliance with the official community plan.
All right, excellent. Council, questions or comments? Sue, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. Councillor McBain? All right. It's going to be really nice to see a development on this property. particularly in light of the fact that it's a, a former service station. The proponent was able to get that certificate of compliance, in relatively short order, which was awesome. So, all right, hearing no questions or comments, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw for 99 Fernie Street. And the motion on the floor is very similar. The council instruct the corporate officer to issue notice of intent not to hold a public hearing for the amendment of bylaw 2741. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor Royer seconds. Roy, this is an interesting one. As I understand, this is a coming back to us as a direct result of the densification bylaw that we brought out.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it for sure. So, so this subject property here might seem familiar for some of council. We did previously consider and approve a rezoning of the site from the R2 zone to the R12 zone back in August of 2021 is when that was adopted. And there was even eventually a development permit issued for the development of proposed townhomes on the site, and that development permit was approved in June of 2022. Since the adoption by council of the housing availability and affordability zoning amendments, that was adopted by council in September of 2022. The applicant has been reviewing their overall development plan there and views the R2 zoning, the amended R2 zoning as favorable to their to their kind of goals and objectives for that site, and to achieve what they view as a preferable development plan there. And so they really appreciate the increased flexibility that's been modified, or the increased flexibility that's in the modified R2 zoning. So effectively, they've applied to change the zoning back to R2, and of course, there's to do that is a full zoning amendment process again. So. As mentioned in the report there, the proposed new development plan for that site currently envisions a combination of 6 individual duplex buildings with 5 of those half duplex units, I guess, also including an attached accessory unit and 1 detached accessory unit. So effectively, the subject property will be divided into 6 parcels. 5 of those will have 3 units on it, and one of those lots will have 2 units on it. So for a total of 17 units overall. And again, preliminary plans for that project are attached to the staff report there. Again, given the kind of uniqueness of this one, where it remains a residential zoning, and certainly consistent and in alignment with the official community plan, and with recent zoning amendments of that council adopted, staff's recommending that we proceed without a public hearing on this, and if council supports that, we'll issue notice prior to consideration of first reading.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Troy. Councillor Roberts.
Troy, would you mind just giving me a brief overview of what that word accessory dwelling stands for?
Yes, just a secondary unit. So in this case, like I said, and 5 of the 6 lots will have 2 accessory units or 2 secondary units, one of which is attached and part of the principal building, and then another one is going to be detached as part of a garage building.
So it would be possible to have a attached secondary suite, for instance?
Yeah, and that's long been a possibility in the R2 zone. The more recent amendments have just expanded on those options and the flexibility to create those secondary units.
Yes, thank you. That's what I believed. I just wanted to be sure.
Councillor McBain.
Yeah, just wanted to say thanks, Troy, for putting this together. And I really actually like how there's really good visual representations in here that put things in perspective. I like the fact that we're expediting things, and I feel even better knowing that we've kind of gone through this process with this property anyways. I mean, we're going full steam ahead. It does fall within what we were looking for with the OCP. And when you look at it on an overhead map, I mean, the square area affected, I mean, it's essentially, it's it's really quite small. It's kind of the natural progression of how Upper Town site is laid out. So, yeah, I just found that really, really helpful. And I think this, having this new process be available to us is great. And thanks for taking advantage of it.
Thank you, Councillor McBain. Further comment? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Next up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw for 501 Forest Crown Drive. And the motion on the floor is that council approve first and second reading of bylaw 2739 and further that an electronic public hearing for this bylaw be scheduled for the regular meeting of council on March the 27th. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Royer moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe just one quick comment before I start with the overview. And I'm not sure what the process is here, but I think we want to clarify that those should be two separate motions, just in case there needs to be some change to
the date?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So we should split that into
Nope, that makes sense.
two
Yeah.
as written there, yeah, so.
Okay. So what's on the floor then is the first of those, and that is approval of first and second reading. Mover and seconder, you're good with that? Sue? Yep. You're good? Okay.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Yeah, so this we've received an application to amend the zoning of a single lot in the Forest Crown Phase 3 area. The address is 501 Forest Crown Drive. It's a corner lot just at the entrance to Phase 3 development area there in Forest Crown. The proposed amendment is proposing to change the zoning from the single unit residential R9 zone to the residential R1 zone. The subject property is currently a vacant corner lot that's been undeveloped since the original development of the subdivision. Otherwise, the Phase 3 there is getting close to full build out there. The applicant is proposing to construct a duplex and then subdivide as a sort of a side-by-side duplex arrangement, and then we'll plan to subdivide along that common side property wall, resulting in 2 units where there's currently a single lot. Of course, that can't proceed under the current zoning, so that's what's triggering the proposed change to R1. Again, that's I think reflective of the flexibility that's built into the housing availability and affordability amendments that council adopted back in September. Yeah, in this case, staff is recommending that we proceed with this under the sort of more typical public hearing process that we've followed in the past. I think just because given there was a recent amendment not too far away here, just down the road, where there was obviously quite a bit of feedback from the neighbors, and I think it's our view that probably best to proceed with a regular public hearing process on this one.
Yeah, awesome. Pardon me, good call on that, I think, Troy. Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I just think, and thanks, Troy, for laying all that out. I just wanted to say I really am in favor of us. It's really nice to see some of these things moving ahead and people trying to be creative. And when I look at the the proposed, a proposed structure that's getting put on there, I mean, I just can't help but think that something like this does. I mean, it still fits within the neighborhood. I understand there's a lot of people who have concerns that live up in Forest Crown, but I think when you look at what's being proposed and you look at the impact that it makes, it should kind of quell any or a lot of concerns that have been brought forward. But yeah, I mean, this is, again, I go back to it. We were all running on very similar things, and this is the type of project that meets those objectives that we were running on. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Troy, is this the first duplex in the Forest Crown area? It is.
Yes, it would be the first.
Okay, so just looking at the diagram and the size of the lot, I'm just not seeing a problem whatsoever of putting a duplex there. And when I look at the picture of the structure in the building itself, it'll just blend in with the rest of the very large dwellings over the area. So I have no problems whatsoever. I mean, I'll be in favor of this also.
But for me, just a point of clarification, so we're putting a line down so that each building is on a separate piece of land. So that could effectively mean that a person could sell one half of the duplex in isolation from the other half of the duplex. Is that correct? Two separate owners? could-
Yes, that's correct. That would be the rationale for wanting to split it, is to be able to sell them separately if so chosen.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Further? Quick comment. I think, good call, I think, on doing the public hearing, Troy. Both given what happened before, but also lots of folks going back into the early 2000s when this subdivision was put in place. There were architectural guidelines that United Communities had put in place that they expected everybody to follow. That was 20 years ago. Lots has changed since then. Certainly, many, if not the majority of the dwellings out there have moved off of what those architectural guidelines were. And the guidelines were never registered on title, so they were never enforceable in any event. But they're still in the minds of lots of folks that end up buying property up there. I think that, this is absolutely a good direction to be going. I concur with Councillor Royer that the design, of the building and how it's going to fit into the neighborhood, it will be virtually seamless, and is something that we desperately need in all neighborhoods in the community, not just a select few. So, I think kudos to the proponent for bringing this forward for a housing type that we really need here in the city. Okay, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay. The second part of that motion is with regard to the public hearing, and that is that a public hearing be scheduled for the regular meeting of Monday, March 27th, beginning at 7 p.m. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Awesome. Thanks, folks. Next up, we have a bylaw for adoption, and that is the OCP amendment bylaw and zoning amendment bylaw for 520 Wallinger Avenue, which is the former Anglican church. So the motion on the floor is that council instruct staff to ensure that prior to building permit issuance, the property owner consolidates the 3 individual parcels, and that council instructs staff to ensure that prior to building permit issuance, the property owner submits an application for access permit for the proposed loading space. So that is the first motion. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Royer, thank you, and Councillor Karen seconds. Comments or questions, council? Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
I guess I'm just kind of curious to know what the rationale is. And I guess this is just going from my own personal experience when I bought a house that was set on 2 lots, and I had a building permit issued, and I since consolidated those lots. So I was just kind of curious to know what the rationale is there.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McBain. Yeah, there's 2 parts there. One, of course, is the consolidation of the existing 3 titled parcels that make up the property. The building kind of straddles the common lot lines there. This is something that we typically ask for on any new builds or any significant renovations that are in a situation like this where there's multiple titles. I mean, it's clearly a bit of an administrative kind of tidy up process, but the process to consolidate the lots is quite easy when the lots are all part of the same original subdivision plan. So in this case, it's a very simple filing application with the land title office. It does typically require a notary or a lawyer to assist with that application, but it's pretty simple, quick, low cost step to take, and that's why we're asking for that to happen prior to building permit issuance. So they can still, apply for building permit and get that review underway, but like to give them early warning to get that started. I'm not sure if that
Go ahead.
So they can be doing both things at the same time.
clearly, yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Dunavac.
Sounds like we're just basically dotting our i's and t's and getting everything in order so that it's all one
That's correct.
before they can proceed.
Brings it all under one title. Yeah.
Makes perfectly good sense to me. It sounds simple. Like,
So I had the same question earlier that I had posed to Troy. And I guess I have another question, Troy. So from the city's point of view, it's strictly housekeeping. There is no material interest on the city's part, either from a financial point of view or, in any way.
Yeah, it doesn't require further city approval to make that happen. But we want to make sure that that's done prior to building permit issuance. I think a key thing that's makes it preferable and ideal to do is that it prevents that kind of awkward potential split of the property, a messy split of the property, which is probably unlikely in this case, but it's good practice to clean that up and get that taken care of whenever there's a significant change like this to a property.
So approximately how long is that going to take?
I think it largely depends on the land title office, but it's probably an hour or two of a lawyer or notary's time to kind of put that together. Again, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but it shouldn't take very long to put the application together and then just submit that for filing. And then it'll just take probably a week or two from land titles to have that accepted. So.
Yeah, I guess that was the concern I have is kind of today, everything is about time and money, both in terms of kind of the inflationary pressures. The sooner we can actually get stuff done, kind of get to yes, the better it is. And my concern was that we were looking at weeks, if not months, of delay in order to get to where the proponent needs to be.
It shouldn't take that long. Like I said, they can submit application for building permit, get their plans in, get that process for review underway, but at the same time have that application to land title office to consolidate and could be done by the time we're ready to issue that permit.
Yeah. And is there a requirement for additional surveying to happen on
No, that would only happen if for some reason the lots were part of a separate original subdivision plan, and then there's a consolidation plan required.
Right. So, and just to confirm again, this particular procedure isn't going to slow down any other aspects of moving the application process forward.
Not in our view, no.
Okay. Councillor McBain.
Would it be, just thinking out loud here, if I know time is of the essence with the folks trying to get some work done here. Since there's no risk to us and there's really nothing that has to be done with us as far as the city is concerned, is this something that we could, if there was record of the filing being sent to the title company, would we be okay moving ahead in that regard? Or, given that it's low risk, I understand if there was, the risk profile was a little bit different, I could understand, but in this case, I don't think it is.
Yeah,
Right.
that would probably be just fine from an administrative perspective if we had record of the application being submitted and received for review, and we're ready to otherwise issue that building permit. It's just a matter of waiting for that, I think. So that'd be more than reasonable. And then we could even just make sure that it's done and registered, like finally approved at land titles prior to occupancy permit. Yeah.
Right. Satisfied with that? Okay. Councillor Roy.
So I just have one question. I'm just looking at the plotting right now. When it comes together as one, are you going to give it a new number? Is that how it's going to work?
It'll change the legal description slightly just to say it's lot A or B or like whatever is suitable, I guess. But land titles will decide what that new description is. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Kind of housekeeping is great. And I know we need to get to that eventually, and there's a lot of it to be done here in Kimberley. But I think it's really behooves us to make sure that however we do the housekeeping, it doesn't slow down the process for the proponents that are trying to get the work done. It's a really, really tough environment, as I'm sure you know, Troy, to build in these days. So let's get her done. Okay, with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the development variance permit. Oh, hang on a second. No, we've got two other motions to go through on this one. The first is that council adopt bylaw 2723, which is an amendment to the OCP. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, that council adopt bylaw 2724, which is the zoning bylaw. Mover, Councillor McBain, Councillor Royer seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right. Next up, we have development variance permit for 481 Deer Run. I'm getting a deja vu on this. I think that we just finished with a variance permit, so we'll be interested here, Troy, in kind of hearing the story. So the motion on the floor is that council instruct the corporate officer to issue notice to neighbors of the intent to vary the zoning bylaw to allow for a retaining wall to remain in place following completion of construction of the single-family dwelling. Motion, please. Councillor Royer, thank you. Councillor Roberts seconds. Go ahead, Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think deja vu is warranted here. At the previous couple of meetings, there was a development variance permit for 845 Deer Run Drive, which is just next door. And in fact, part of retaining wall variance was related to this particular property and application. And in fact, there was retaining wall variance that affected each adjacent property. But in this case, the neighbor at 841 Deer Run Drive has also now applied for a development variance permit to vary the to allow for variance of setback to allow for the existing retaining wall to remain in place. And so what's happened here is a retaining wall has been constructed across the property line. There's been some collaboration between the owners prior to, preferred and ideal process would have been to get the variance approval first. But in this case, they're working to catch up with that, I guess, and have that corrected. And, basically, it's come to realize that it's preferable to kind of leave the wall as it is. So, that's there is already a house at this location, and this would allow for an existing retaining wall to stay in place, and is with the recent approval of the other variances, kind of ties that together and makes some sense for the grading. As we know, with Deer Run Drive, whether it's on the downslope side or the upslope side of Deer Run Drive, there's some really challenging site planning considerations there, and in some ways, in some cases, there can be an advantage to property owners kind of cooperating together like this and coming up with a retaining solution that benefits both properties.
Awesome. So on the kind of the photo, is that a Google Earth photo?
It's a aerial image that
Yeah.
the city's obtained. Yep.
So I see walls on 845, but I don't see one on 841.
The photo predates the construction. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
All right, Councillor Roberts.
Looking at that and knowing that if I had a house there, I'd certainly be wanting a wall. When the drop off is right down to Jerry Sorensen, and you'd want to make sure that whatever kind of a wall goes up there is going to be safely installed. Which if I had to build one, I would certainly want to assure that it was done that way. Does the city have any input into the kind of wall that would be put in there so that it doesn't like drag down the hill or?
Yeah, there's there's technical requirements and design required by a qualified professional, usually structural engineer, geotech engineer involved in the design and ensuring that it's built according to design. And
okay,
yeah,
that's good.
Further, council? Go ahead, Kevin.
I guess I have a little bit of concern with this, because I used to live up there and drive past there, and during freshet, there was always a concern with how much moisture coming off of the ski hill affected this road, and how much water there was. If there's any consideration taken to freshet and or what do they call the new big rainstorms? I'm lost for words right now. But just if we have some sort of thinking to plan for high water, so to speak, and if there's the capabilities to tie into things to get the water off the mountain, so we're not worried about the road below being washed out with the diversion coming from said walls, maybe.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. So the previous question about the design professionals involved in that, that's part of their review, part of their consideration is how is surface drainage and below surface drainage properly dealt with, and so they're not creating issues that way. There's obviously some of that question or concern is a much wider area than can be dealt with on an individual lot like this, and certainly there's a number of different things that happen, at the early development stage, early subdivision stages here. But it's part of that overall kind of stormwater management situation. There was some drainage issues from, I want to say last season, I guess, maybe 2 seasons ago. They all kind of blend together for me now, but and which have since been resolved and tidied up, and yeah, part of that review was understanding that just like informing design of future and maintenance of existing retaining features and other drainage features as well. There've been some sort of in more general terms, just kind of clogging up of some drainage features that needs to be better maintained to make sure that the system's working the way it was designed. Yeah.
Councillor McBain.
Yeah, just to support Troy there, because this is what I did for a while. You can also, if you see on the map too, there is a conveyance there with a culvert through Jerry Sorensen, just I guess it would be to the south of that property as well. But yeah, so just for everybody's clarity, yeah, that would be built into the design. Taking into account precipitation rates, all the slope stability calculations that would go into designing those walls would be considering all that runoff. So,
All right, further comment? Go ahead, Sue.
I have questions and concerns about
Oh,
email from Chris Young. Can you hear me?
you're breaking up.
Okay, I'll try that again. I'm concerned about the correspondence from Chris Young in regard to his decision-making process based on these being temporary walls, and trying to keep
We can't hear you again, Sue.
Okay, it's the email from Chris Young that I'm looking at. And
Yep.
the decision-making process that he went through based on these being temporary walls. And I am, looking at the numbers, I'm not exactly sure how his property fits with this one, but he does note that they decided not to move forward with a proposed shared wall because of the details.
We're not getting any of that, Sue. Sorry.
Okay. I'm not sure why my volume.
Try turning your video off.
Okay. Okay, is that better?
Not quite.
Okay, it must be the headset that I'm using.
Is your microphone moving?
Yeah.
If you can just hold it stationary.
Okay, is this better?
Way better.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, all right. I found my microphone. It's the email from Chris Young that I'm looking at, and the decision-making process that he went through based on these being temporary structures. And I'm not sure how all the pieces fit together here, but it does seem that there's a need for some neighbor agreement in place on this piece. I'm concerned that the retaining wall was built as a temporary measure. That's what the direct neighbor thought that it was, and it is what they're relying on for their own property development. So from that sense, I wouldn't be in support of moving this forward.
Yeah. I think I got most of that, and if I can, I'll try to speak to that, I guess, to what
Go
I
ahead.
understand to be the question or the comment there. But I think there was collaboration between the two property owners here on the retaining wall design, which I think at one point was intended or planned to be more temporary. But this is now proposed to be more of a permanent solution. I think a similar process or steps were attempted on the other side of 845 Deer Run Drive, but to date, they haven't been able to kind of come to those to a similar agreement there. And so the variance that was approved on the opposite side of 845 on the adjacent property did allow for that to be to a 0 setback, but not to encroach across the property line. So, and one of the requirements there is that they verify for us that the structure does not encroach onto the adjacent property. And if so, then they'll have to resolve that. In this case, both property owners are in agreement and agreeable to allowing the wall to stay there and continued cooperation to maintain and make sure that remains a proper functioning retaining wall.
Now, which property are you referring to? 837
Sorry, the other.
or 845?
845, sorry. Well, no, 845 is immediately adjacent to this one, but I think the letter she referenced was from the owner of 849 Deer Run Drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris Young is 849? Okay. I thought he was immediately adjacent, but
He's adjacent to 845, so which is we're talking about 841.
right.
This time around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Chris lives in Hong Kong, and he was primarily fussed because he didn't get notice. The 2-week notice didn't hit him in time, and we actually had made a decision and kind of rolled through with the original version before he had an opportunity to voice his opinion, whether it be an objection or otherwise. In subsequent correspondence, his primary concern is that he would get the same consideration for variance consideration, to which I told him that every application is reviewed on its own merit, and that at such time as he puts in an application, with a proposed design, it would be taken under consideration.
Yeah, it's a good answer. We can't pre-approve the variance.
Exactly.
They can make a similar or matching application, but need to provide their own rationale for what that is. And to be clear, this subject variance here is, I guess, 2 lots away from that one, and not directly impacting the 849.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
Council, further questions? So we'll call the question then on this. And to be clear, this is that the corporate officer issue notice to neighbors for the intent to vary. So notice is going out, and I'm sure we'll hear back. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. No, you weren't opposed, were you, Sue? No, she voted for it.
No, I'm in favor.
You got to get that hand up fast, Sue.
Okay.
Okay, next up, we have the Kimberley Curling Club Improvement Project, which is an application for grant to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program. And that we have a fairly long resolution here, but it's basically to approve the grant for the Kimberley Curling Club, and as detailed in the Manager of Community Development and Communication staff report. I expect everybody has read that staff report. So it is to direct staff as per the report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor Royer seconds. Pam, this one's yours.
Is here as well. She can certainly answer any technical questions that you might have with regards to the project. She's been working with Blair of the Kimberley Curling Club to kind of work out the project specifics. There's a grant application available for green and inclusive community buildings. Blair Jarvis of the Kimberley Curling Club approached us and asked us if we would be willing to partner on an application. So essentially, we as a team decided that that would be a great application for us to put forward at this point to do some energy efficient upgrades at that building.
All right.
And Jim helped craft that recommendation there, and we just want to make sure that it gets added to the 2023-2027 5-year financial plan.
So, you know, in summary, the grant is for just under $146,000.
The entire grant is 182.
The entire project, you mean?
Yes, the entire project.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes. Yes.
Of which 14 would come from the city, 22,000 from the curling club, and then the 146,000 from the grant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Pam. Nicole, did you want to add anything? Okay. Council, questions? Councilor Roberts, go ahead.
Well, whenever the government decides to give away some of my tax money, I always feel like some of it should come here, and I'll be in good support of this.
Yeah, to say the least. Good comment. Further, council. Call the question then. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
What's the project? Like, what are the improvements that want to be done?
So elements of the
scope?
project include full LED replacements, the replacements of the furnaces that heat the building itself, the replacement of the on-ice surface furnaces, the replacement of hot water tanks, the inclusion of, it's almost like that you lay out the curling sheet rink ice and then water is put to it. So you actually are using less water in the long run by freezing. So there's energy savings moving forward. Those are the elements that were application.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, well architected project for sure, Nicole. So we'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next item is the 2023 elected officials seminar to be held here in Kimberley. And the motion on the floor is that myself, Councillor Cairns, Councillor McGuire, Councillor Roberts, and Councillor Royer be authorized to attend the 2023 elected officials seminar being held at the Kimberley Conference Center. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Cairns. We have any discussion? Thanks for everybody's attendance on this. You will get a lot out of it. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And next up, we have the 2023 AKBLG Convention Attendee Authorization. The 2023 AKBLG is being held in Cranbrook from April 21st to 23rd. And this motion is to authorize those that wish to attend. I will be attending, and Councillor Roberts will be attending. Anybody else? Councillor Cairns, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, just a note that the registration closes for the early bird closes March 10th. So if we want to take advantage of those savings, we'll need confirmation
Yeah,
of who's
okay.
attending.
So what we'll do then is add Councillor Royer to the motion, and if you go, you go, and if you don't, you don't. But the authorization is in place.
That sounds good. Put me in.
Yeah. Nope. All right, a mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you, and Councillor Roberts seconds. Further? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And last up under new business is the check run in the amount of $774,843 to be approved as paid. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Roberts seconds.
Only one,
Any comments, Council?
there's only one thing of note that I'd like to point out to
Yeah.
new folks, and that is the item for the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, where we paid $243,145 to insure the city assets. No small item.
Bargain at twice the price.
Yeah, and that's a bargain price being through the Municipal Insurance Association. If we were going through a different kind of insurance company, it would be substantially more.
This includes liability
Mhm.
insurance
For
as well.
bridges and things like that, yeah.
Okay, motion's on the floor. Any further comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, correspondence. We have 4 items of correspondence. Could I have a mover to accept? Councillor Royer, thank you. Councillor Cairns, is that your hands up? Yeah, awesome. Council, any comments on any of the items? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of receipt? That motion is carried. All right, question period. So in addition to folks here in council chamber, we are also inviting members of the public to call in and ask questions about any of the items on the agenda this evening. The number to call for those that are viewing on YouTube is 800-741-7180. And when prompted, the meeting number is 2773-142-6354. Once again, that's 800-741-7180. And the meeting number is 2773-142-6354. I should probably, at the beginning of the meeting, suggest anybody watching have a pencil ready. There's a lot of digits there. Okay, while we're waiting to see if anybody is dialing in, we'll do the roundtable. Councillor McBain.
Well, I guess
by
I'll,
default left.
yeah, it's fine. I will publicly thank Councillor Roberts for filling in for me last minute at the firefighters graduation. I'd planned on filling in for the mayor actually, and I got called away to work last minute, but thankfully I called Sandra up, and at a moment's notice she was ready to go, so she filled in for me. So I really appreciate that, and congratulations to all of the firefighters. Since last meeting, I've had a meeting with the Kimberley Health Center, and still just well, we've looking at some other opportunities to expand the tenant base. You know, potentially getting some help with that, and currently working through the proposal to have a business plan drafted up for the board. Additionally, I had a meeting with the library committee the other day as well, and I think last time I spoke to council about library committee, we were in search of a new director. We have a decent number of candidates, and we're starting interviews there. So fingers crossed, we will have a new director in place fairly soon. And that's pretty exciting news. And a couple other positions potentially opening up as well, but nothing, it's not definitive yet. So won't put that out there for a public call yet, but some things are moving.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Kevin.
Yeah, nothing to report. This go around, just enjoying the beautiful weather, and nice to see everybody out having
Awesome.
fun. Oh, and I did actually go and attend a few things of the Flannel Festival over the weekend, which was nice to see people out in the cold and all the different things going on. So nice to see everybody out.
Good time. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
I
ahead,
have just
Stephen.
one report to give tonight. Got invited to the Spark Youth Center on 250 Howard Road. I visited last Friday and met up with Bev Meadowbrook, and she took me for the grand tour. And it's been operational as a nonprofit organization for 29 years. I was quite intrigued of what they have in there. They have thousands of books which are sold by donation and used as petty cash and for promote literacy. The center is open Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 after school. and is supervised. The youth can eat, have recreational activities, learn how to run business, and participate in community events. The center has a front desk, meeting room, storage room, office, and a very large activity room in the back. The back room just absolutely blew my mind. It has a drum set. You can start your own band if you wanted to. Pool table, computers, TV, furniture, and fully equipped kitchen. So after seeing it, I was like really impressed. So I highly recommend that everybody go out there and check it out. It's open to anybody who wants to see it. And they were the recipients of the community grant. So they're utilizing the money in their community quite well.
Awesome. Thanks for that report. Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Jason mentioned, I had the chance to present on behalf of the city to the graduates from the College of the Rockies firefighter program. Oh my goodness, there's 32 of them. I couldn't believe there were that many. And they're there for 26 weeks and they work hard. Oh my goodness, I've seen the fire leaders have them pack up the stairs, the big backpacks and all their stuff on. I think, oh my goodness, this is tough stuff that they're learning to deal with. And they were really excited to be finally graduated and going back home, looking for jobs now. The other opportunity I had was to join in the meeting for Center 64. They are having quite a deep discussion about the development of an outdoor stage. They're having it designed by an architect at the moment in consultation with Scott and Nicole. And they've got 3 or 4 designs that have been put forward that they're sort of mulling over, deciding which one they should try to, explore more deeply. They have to pay attention to where it is going to be situated on the lot, whether or not it has access to power, whether or not it has access to an area that might be called a green room for entertainers to come and go from, and not block off road access to any of the doors or the elevator at the building. So they've got a big project in front of them, but they're hot to trot. Should be interesting to see how it turns out.
Awesome. So, you want to report on your holiday?
Sure. Well, I am really looking forward to getting back to Kimberley, and I have been spending time in El Chaltén in Argentina, which is the trekking capital, and lots of mountain time, lots of similarities, and lots of crossover. So super interesting. And the first meeting coming up that I'll be attending is I'll be going to the Marysville Lions Housing Society meeting on March 7th. They're seeking to add, we all received the email, so we know, but they're seeking to add 13 to 14 new units and looking for ideas for funding. And I just want to highlight to film on March 3rd on pesticide use and alternatives. And that's it for me right now. Looking forward to seeing folks in person.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Sue. You're back in about a week? 2 weeks?
I start on my way back tomorrow, and I'll actually be in town on Thursday.
Awesome. Safe travels home.
Thanks so much. You too.
All right. I've got a few things to summarize. The RDK actually took up about 3 days this week. We spent a day on the financial plan, which we will be seeing the results of in the form of the requisition that we will be getting from the RD. That's basically a bill that we give them for services, the biggest of which is the solid waste, but there are a number of other services that we contribute to as well. So that will be coming in soon. There was also a regional hospital board meeting this month, mostly to review projects that are underway in the various facilities around both the East Kootenays, which also includes, though the hospital district includes Creston and Golden, in addition to the EK communities. I spent some time with Charlene Hill at BC Assessment, getting a little bit of an education on things like zoning as it relates to tax classes, land title disputes, and all kinds of interesting things. There never seems to be enough education coming from BC Assessment. I also attended the Rotary Luncheon in Cranbrook, which was significant because the provincial seniors advocate was the guest speaker at that luncheon. And it was, she not only knows her stuff, but is really, really tuned into what's happening across the province with the with seniors. And contrary to, you know, a popular vision that seniors are people with pensions and lots of money in their, you know, in home equity, the fact remains that that is an exception in the province. And most seniors are really, really struggling to keep their heads above the poverty line. And accommodation, appropriate accommodation, independent living is one of the biggest needs on the list. We've talked about that a lot more. I won't get into that in detail. Had a meeting with the chamber, talking about a couple of things. Their biggest interest point right now was who's going to be the liaison, you know, for the chamber. Scott and Nick and myself had two meetings, one with Occam and one with the Ktunaxa Nation Council, actually with the CAO and the group of land and water folks to talk about the new wastewater treatment plant. I think we had two, you know, really good meetings with those two groups. I had a Columbia Basin Development Corp board meeting, but independent of the board meeting, I wanted to remind everybody that the Columbia Basin Management Plan is under review, and starting the 1st of April and going until about the middle of May, there will be 20 community engagement opportunities. The Kimberley engagement is April the 5th. There will be a couple of hours in the afternoon and then followed by an engagement, a facilitated engagement session in the evening. So I think it would behoove you know, as many councillors as possible that could get out for that should. That's April the 5th. There was also a Tourism Kimberley board meeting that I attended. The bottom line, typically in the board meetings, we do two primary reviews that are standard procedure, and that is a review of finances and where things are at with respect to the money. And then secondly, a review of the marketing programs that have been undertaken both for the month, for the quarter, and what the plan is for the year. We kind of get a view into things like new videos, new marketing campaigns, and things like that. The bottom line is that the 2022 was a pretty solid year all around for tourism. Not up to what it was pre-COVID as of yet, but it was pretty solid. And the Christmas season and into February has been outstanding. We only have 350 doors for visitors in Kimberley. It's a really, really small number of doors. And with the movement to outdoor recreation post-COVID and with folks that are committed and loyal to Kimberley, our accommodation has been filled up for the last couple of months, which was great to see. So on the firefighter grad, thank you, Jason, for agreeing to step in. And thank you, Sandra. So Sandra, as it turns out, Sandra had a lot more value to add to that than either you or I did. So we'll maybe have you continue to do that in future years, Sandra. So thank you very much for doing that on such short notice. Okay, we do have one item for in camera tonight. Oh, question period. Yeah. Do either of you have any comments or questions? No? Anybody dial in?
There is no callers on the line.
Oh, you kind of duped me there for a sec. The way you said there is. I thought we had at least one. Okay, so hearing none, move to moving camera. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Royer seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. So we'll take 2 minutes to clear the courtroom. And thanks, folks, for being here tonight. We appreciate it. That'd be awesome.